Our first speaker today is Dr. Sapna Keel. She is an academic hospitalist at GBMC Medical Center, but she has years of experience as being a program director at St. Agnes Medical Center. And she will be discussing with you about the pre-interview and setting up for it, and the things that you do for having a successful interview. Then we have Dr. Dobin Chow, who is a chair of medicine and program director at University of Maryland Medical Center. And he's everything. He was a past governor of ACP. He is very involved in students and residents. And he is going to talk to you more about, again, the interview process. And we have Dr. Natasha Cheetah, who is the program director of the Osler Medical Residency Program at the Johns Hopkins Medical Center. She is also going to give you part of this discussion. So it's going to be a 3-part discussion. And then, most importantly, Dr. Colleen Christmas, our governor, our Maryland ACP governor, is also here. She's in the chat along with me. And Mary Ellen Woodward, who somehow makes everything happen. And as she said, very sorry for the technical difficulties. And we'll get started with you, Dr. Keel.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes. All right. So welcome, everybody. And this is a nerve-wracking time. And today is the day when applications did open for programs. So I know there's a lot of excitement, at least from the program perspective. And I hope we can give you an idea of what's to come. All right. I just want to get some disclosures out of the way. We really have no disclosures to report. And we don't represent the views of ACP. We are program directors who have been doing this a long time, and we hope to give you our perspective on this process. So our agenda sort of for today is a little bit of the pre-interview prep, interview day, and post-interview processing, as you heard. And I know there's a mixed folks from international medical graduates as well as U.S. graduates probably logged in. So we'll try our best to address certain differences between the two as we go along, but please feel free to ask questions. As you know, getting into residency sometimes feels like a sprint, but it's more like a marathon. It is not a 100-meter dash. It is a long slog, as you know, with the timeline that you are well aware of. Many of you start in April or early in the year with personal statements and CVs and getting your letters, getting your letters from the dean, and getting to submitting your applications, and then going to the NRMP match, which has also opened now. And we are at September 25th that just opened, with where the programs could download and begin reviewing your applications. So walking through that a little bit as you look at the ERAS application, and as you may have thought a little bit about, as you may have selected some programs, but you may also be in the process of selecting more. So I just want to briefly comment on that. I know many of you know, but the number one reason for where people apply is geographic location from repeated surveys of applicants. So if you have a geographic preference where you have loved ones or personal support system, it certainly makes sense to put that out there and give your regional preference when you apply. Certainly curricular offerings and specialties and even individual tracks may be factors that you consider as you are looking at applications. Certainly FRIDA has a lot of information, as does Residency Explorer, to look at programs. It is important for you to also think about the settings in which these programs are located, whether they're urban, suburban, rural, in terms of where you want to practice ultimately. large, small programs, community versus university, and affiliations with medical schools. As you know, one of the things that's part of this is regional preferences. You can select a regional preference up to 3 of 9 regions and give a little bit of an explanation to your selection. Yes, the regions are divided the way they are. We did not, as program directors, choose these regions. So you may be in one region where you have Maryland as well as Florida in that same region. So it is quite a big area that you may be putting in a preference for. But that short explanation is incredibly helpful for us as programs to look at. And it's perfectly okay to not have a region preference and explain that as well. And those explanations that you provide through your application can be very helpful for us to understand your thought process. We do know that in general, data shows that many of the people who practice in a region end up, training in a region, end up practicing in that region. And this is some older data, but it does matter where you end up training. So that training correlates with where they practice. I did want to briefly talk about just some AIM recommendations. As many of you may or may not know, there's a large organization called the Alliance for Academic Internal Medicine. It's a large umbrella under which all the medical education, certainly around internal medicine, resides. And within that is an organization called APTIM, where 80 to 90% of the program directors belong to and work together. So they do come up with some recommendations. These are not requirements for programs, but they're recommendations. And their current recommendations are still to continue to conduct virtual interviews for all, try to keep clear standards of how communication will occur when the interviews emails are sent out so that you have some ample time to respond and plan. There's also faculty training to mitigate bias and use of standardized questions. And generally, they've recommended against in-person visits at open house. But however is that some programs feel more and more strongly that they would be best in a good light, placed in a good light if they can have people come and visit and see their institution, especially smaller programs. And so it's a recommendation, but there are more and more programs that are setting up open houses or opportunities for people to visit if that is important to you. And we can talk more about that in the questions when it comes up. The other thing some of you may have noticed, and I just want to briefly touch on this also, is that there is program signaling that we've had since the last year. And now we have a tiered program signal this year in internal medicine, where you get to have 3 gold and 12 silver. It is your way of showing interest in a program. But how programs use these signals may differ from program to program. Some programs are encouraged to say how they use their signals and how they will use them in their whole process of interviewing. For the most part, signals are used as a way to look for people who are interested in the program and see if they meet the criteria for the program to be interviewed. It does not guarantee an interview in most programs. Signals are sent as an institutional level, so it's not a specific track. So, for example, if you apply to an internal medicine program and they have a primary care track or a research track or something like that, the signal goes to the whole institutional piece. You know, I think at the end of the day, where to give your signals, who to apply to, does require us to make an honest assessment of where we are. I think we all want to think we look a certain way, but this is where your faculty can really help you in making sure you make the most realistic choices. And some of the signals could be for REACH programs, and then there could be some for your safety programs, just like maybe when you're applying to college. How do programs select for applicants? There are many ways is the short answer, and there is no one consistent way to that programs do, but I can give you a little bit of an idea. We're grateful we are not doing everything in paper anymore, but there is a lot of different ways that applications are screened in ERAS, and PDs may need to get a final number of applications to read. So because many programs may get thousands of applications for a small number of positions, they may use different criteria to filter those applications and figure out and do holistic reviews of the applications that they come with some kind of filter criteria, and then figuring out the number to invite. Does the medical school matter? Yes, it can. Of course, there are some things like that but it depends on the program. And think about where you may be a good applicant for, or that program may be a good program for you to reach for, or you have a good chance. Who reads the applications? It's usually the program director. There's a number of faculty. There's a program staff. So there may be multiple people reading them. And in general, programs are seeking diversity of culture, interests, and backgrounds. I'm just going to briefly share a little bit of data. This is from NRMP on just data based on all specialties, how are applications rejected, reviewed, and some are about 35.5% in the last cycle were rejected based on a standardized screen, and then about 45.5% received a holistic review according to the NRMP data. And you can look at the website. Here's the link for it. You can look for more of this detailed data so you can see, because there can be a small quota for the program. There may be large number of applications, and then they are processed through till their invitations are sent, the numbers interviewed, and then ranked. So virtual interviews, I think a lot of you are more comfortable with this, so that's why I spend a little more time on the application process, because I think we've been in the Zoom world for a few years, so we have gotten more comfortable with the Zoom process. But you want to ensure the basics, the excellent internet access, technology, test it, have a friend, pretend to log in and look at you and give you feedback, make sure your devices are charged. When you are doing a formal interview, try to keep your pets away and set up a professional background. I think we have all learned that it does matter where we put the webcam, and you do your best. This is your one chance to make a good impression, so make sure you do your homework in having the best foot forward in a Zoom interview. Again, these are just some simple things, but where you put your camera in relation to your head, eye level is always better. As you can see, I'm reading from the side, so I'm looking a lot to the side, but ideally you want to be able to look into the camera as much more and be able to connect with the person on the other side. Distractions, you want to minimize, turning off your cell phone. You know these things, but we forget sometimes that there may be apps that will kind of ding while you're on the computer, interrupting an interview. Another thing that can be terribly distracting is to look at yourself. And so utilize hide your video feature so you don't get distracted with the way you look on the camera. And make sure you have an emergency number in case you run into technical difficulties for the program so that you don't miss that window to interview. And especially towards the later part of the season, you might need to be ready for short notice interviews. I think you want to try to do your best to practice mock interviews, but you don't want to be too rehearsed. Recording yourself would be a great thing to do because I know I don't like the way I sound often when I listen to myself. So it is helpful, though, to recognize that sometimes you may be having some hand gestures or some ways that you move your head or your face so that you can put your best foot forward. Being present, being authentic is the most important thing. We want to know you as a person so that we can get the best idea of who you are and whether this is a good fit for you. And then trying to schedule, you can schedule preferred programs mid to late, but really I don't think it matters as much as long as you're getting an opportunity to get that interview. I'm trying to recall. I think we may be at that point where I turn it over to Dobbin. Dobbin, are you ready to take over?
Yeah, that's fine. Let me practice that. Next screen.
Oh, of course. Hold on. Let me just get myself onto the right one.
Okay, so perfect. So I'm okay. We'll go over this. This is about the interview, and it's hard to know what the interview day is going to consist of, and of course that presents extra stress for you all. But you can try to anticipate, learn about the program, go to their website, read about the program, read about their curriculum, whatever's available. And sometimes they will share with you what to expect during the interview day, how many people you'll interview with. Sometimes they'll tell you which faculty you interview with. So try to get as much information as you can. Next. Who do you need to impress? Everyone. So if you're going to be in contact with the program coordinator, probably through email in terms of setting up the appointment, do your best to impress the program coordinator. That person can really help your application, or they can hurt your application. Yeah, so it's the other applicants too. Be cordial and be friendly and professional when interacting with other applicants. That is sometimes noticed. What should you have at your desk? So I recommend having your CV at your desk, because even though the people interviewing you should have it, they may be interviewing you and they may be in their lab. And your file is in their office, and so if you just have your CV available to you, you can help them. Also, they may be looking at your articles, your manuscripts that you published, and they may have questions about it. So I would get all your publications on your desk or available on your computer, so that if they have a question about it. And sometimes they do, not to dive deeply into your research, but they sometimes will just ask the question because this is an area that they're interested in. They happen to be a pulmonary critical care specialist, and they have an interest in interstitial lung disease, and you happen to do a study on that. They may ask a question about your methodology, and if you have your manuscript right at your desk, and you can pull it up and go over with them. That will help. Okay. Does the personality matter? So they're looking. You've made a big cut if you've gone from the application to the interview. Programs. So I'll give you an example. Our program will interview about 140 people to match 9 of them. But we went down from today we have 3,840. But to get down to 100, go from over 3,000 down to 140 is a big cut. So you're already at the level of which you're probably going to get ranked. We're going to interview about 140. We're going to rank about 110. I'm guessing, but somewhere. So you're probably going to get ranked. And so, how do they figure out where they're going to rank you? They like you. Look, they asked to interview you. Now, personality, connection. They're going to try to get a feel for whether you're the type of person they want in the program, whether you're the type of person they want to work with. It's hard to do that through the through the Zoom camera, but so you got to try to communicate your enthusiasm, your passion, your willingness to engage. That's what they're looking for. Okay, what not to ask? You probably will have time to ask questions to the residents about how many admissions they get on a call night, what is the food like, what is what are the benefits like? Those kinds of questions probably are not the ones you want to have ask the faculty. Okay, this is how you want to impress the faculty. They might mention, hey, you're going to be on call every 4th night, and you say, what? Oh, every 4th night? I want to be on call every night. I want to pick up every admission. All right, don't say that. But at any rate, they like to hear that. All right, what is the program trying to learn during the interview? And they're trying to learn about your whether you're a good fit for their culture, whether you would fit in with the other residents, whether you would support the community of the residency. Now, they like programs want to be diverse, so they embrace the opportunity to have people with diverse backgrounds, diverse interests, because that adds to the community. Okay, and then at the end of every interview, you're going to interview with faculty, and every faculty member is going to say, hey, do you have any questions? At the end of the interview, have some questions available. It's probably not great to say, no, I don't have any questions. All right, but when you do have questions, don't go to the internet and get these canned questions. There's these canned questions that are sort of annoying because you know that they didn't really have a question, but they found some on the internet. Like, I get this. I don't know where they get this. I was asked this multiple times. If you had all the money in the world, how would you change your program? If I had all the money in the world, I wouldn't be spending it on changing the program. I would. I don't know what I would do. I would. Me and Elon Musk would hang out. That's what would happen. I don't know, but
might change the world.
But because it's not a. I don't know. But I got asked that question many times. I also got asked the question, how do you evaluate your residents? Which seems like so I don't know. If it comes from a genuine place, that's fine. And but if you're just asking questions just to ask questions, don't do that. So what do? You go to the website and you look at the website and you find something that you would like more information about. Then that's specific to you. You might say, "Oh, I noticed that you have a simulation lab. Hey, I'm interested in simulation. I'd like to learn more about that. Can you tell me about the simulation lab?" Something something that's specific, something that they can talk to, and it also shows that you reveals your interest, that reveals your passion, that you're someone who wants to take that next step forward in improving your skills by engaging in simulation. Okay, next slide. Okay, so wear a suit, and I know that you're sitting in front of a Zoom camera. Wear a suit with your pants that's part of the suit. Wear your dress shoes. Now they're not going to see your shoes, right? You got your shoes under the desk, but wear your dress shoes. Why? Because I think, maybe it's just me, I think if you are fully dressed and you are you're authentic, you're authentic to yourself. If you're wearing a suit and a tie, and on the top, but you're wearing scrubs for your pants, wouldn't you feel a little bit you're not quite whole, you're not entirely there, you're not genuine. All right, so I want you to feel like you're coming to this, you're all in, and you want to make a good impression, not just from what you wear, but from your authentic self. Clothing is one thing, but I think part of it also is your general demeanor. They want to see enthusiasm, passion, energy. Next slide. Questions. Next. So here's some common interview. Be ready to answer these questions. What made you interested in applying to this program? Next. Okay, so what are your professional goals, and how will our training programs? And this seems like such an obvious thing that the program should know about you already. And I have a hard time finding this out. For some reason, I guess applicants have been told to hide this away and don't reveal this in their personal statement in any part of their application. I don't know, but I think it's important. The programs will want to know, hey, what are your goals? What do you want? What's your what outcome do you want to see at the end of your training? What outcome do you want to see in your professional career? And then the program will try to see if that's a good match for them. Next. Okay, you're gonna get this question. I don't ask this question. I don't think it's a good question. It's sort of a canned question. What are your strengths and weaknesses? I don't know. But you'll get this, and you just sort of have to come up with something. Now, what's the best way to answer that? You take a weakness, and you turn that into a strength. What do I mean by that? For example, you might say, one of my weaknesses that I perceived during medical school was my physical examination skills, and in particular, I just was not comfortable with my cardiac auscultation skills. So you know what? I really worked on that, and I sought out a cardiology mentor. I worked with him for several weeks in his office. We honed my skills, and now I feel like that's really a strength. So you've taken so that wasn't really a question they asked, right? But that's okay. That's the question that you're answering, and what you've done is you've told them a story about you're a type of person who can identify weaknesses. You can identify resources to shore those weaknesses up, and now you can make self-improvement. And that's what drives you. That's the type of person you are, and that's a good message to send. All right, they might ask you, tell me of a time when you made a difference for a patient. Either you made a great diagnosis, or you did something extraordinary. Next question is, what challenges have you faced? The reason why they ask these type of questions, these are called behavioral questions. How how do programs predict how you're going to behave during residency? Well, the best predictor of future behavior is previous behavior. So they'll ask you, hey, tell me about interaction with the patient. Tell me when you didn't do well. How did that go for you? And how did you respond to feedback? And how you behaved in the past will predict how you performed or would respond in the future. So that's why there's these called behavioral questions. Go ahead. Tell me a time you worked under pressure, about a time you made a mistake. Tell me about a difficult decision. Tell me about a time you tried to accomplish something and failed. Okay, so be prepared to answer these types of questions. Now, because I don't know, maybe you all have different experiences. I've asked some of this, and I had one applicant say, well, they don't want to reveal when they failed, right? I mean, that's you don't want to give a bad impression. So they said, oh, well, I was on a soccer team when I was on the 5th grade and when I was 10 years old, and we lost the championship game. And I said, I'm sorry to hear that. 5th grade. I don't know. So try to come up, be thoughtful about this, come up with something beforehand that, no one is, and everyone, all of us have failed at something, but tell the story how that transformed you, how that became a positive experience for you. So sometimes these questions will link to the program's core values. A core value for a program might be we want our residents to demonstrate resilience. A core value might be that they want their residents to have internal motivation as opposed to external motivation, that you are internally motivated about being able to resolve conflicts. So these are values. These are concepts that each program may embody and they may value and they think is important, and so they may ask about this. Okay. Now, different types of interviews. There's a traditional interview where you interview with a faculty member for 20, 30 minutes, and you talk to them one-on-one. There's this concept of speed dating. I don't know too much about speed dating. Dr. Deepak and Dr. Kuhl, they're experts at this. But apparently, what you talk to a faculty member for 8 minutes, and they ask one topic, and then you move on to another faculty member, and they talk about a different topic, and then you go to another faculty member, they talk to you about a third topic. Meanwhile, if you're the faculty member, you keep talking about the same topic, but you go through multiple applicants in the course of a session. I don't know. We don't do that. I have I know some programs do it. They like it. Just be aware that does occur. There's also this phenomenon of group interviewing where the entire group of applicants are together, and then there's a group of people interviewing, and they'll just throw questions out to the whole group. I think that's really challenging. That's really challenging because you're not sure when you can answer. You don't want to seem like you're going to talk over someone else, and you don't want to seem overbearing. But on the other hand, you do want your voice to be heard. So if this happens you're in a group setting, speak. But then after you speak, you then, instead of you're talking to the faculty members, you say, hey, have the other applicants, have you all had the same experience? What you want to be seen doing is you're sharing, you're engaging with the other applicants. You consider them as colleagues. You value the relationship with them. That would be, I think that would work nicely. All right. Sometimes they have residents interview you. Is that a time to let your guard down? No. All right. So you'll be interviewing with the resident, and you might say to the resident, "All right, look, how many admissions do you really get on call? How many patients are on your service?" And don't go there. The resident interview is just as important, if not more important, than the faculty interviews. Okay, you have to impress. You go out of the way to impress the residents. Okay, next slide. What to say? Okay, so there's a YouTube video, because you'll this is very often this is the first question you're going to get asked during the interview. Tell me about yourself. Now that's a tough question. That's a tough question to answer, right? So there's a YouTube video by Christine Liu, and it's a HBR is a Harvard Business Review, which is like the New England Journal of the business world. Turns out I know Christine Liu. Her mother and my wife are best friends, and of course her mother, being a Asian woman, was all upset that she did not go to medical school and become a doctor. Christine instead went to Harvard Business School, became a business academic. I don't know. She's a wonderful person. Anyway, she did this nice video. I encourage you to watch it, about how to answer the question, tell me about yourself. You may also get asked, tell me about a case. So have a case in your pocket. And then when they ask you, do you have any questions? Okay. Ask a question that shows that you're interested in. So it's not all about me and what is the program going to do for me? How is this program going to get me into fellowship? It's instead ask questions about how you can contribute to the program as a resident. How can you contribute to the culture of the program? How can you contribute to wellness and the journey towards wellness for the program? How can you contribute to scholarly activities and how can you contribute to Journal Club? And what that shows is an altruistic side of you, that it's that you're here to serve the patients. You're also here to serve the program. Okay, I think next I hand it over, right? I'll step down. Thanks for listening. Glad to answer any questions afterwards.
So I just want to highlight one thing, which is what are expectations of programs when it comes to post-interview communication? Because I think that this is probably one of the things that gives applicants the most stress, which is what happens when programs reach out. And I just want to be very clear that the expectation from both the NRMP and the Alliance of Academic Internal Medicine, which is the society for basically residency programs in IM, is that programs should not be reaching out to applicants to ask them where they are going to rank them. So you as an applicant are more than welcome to contact programs, ask clarifying questions, try to get more information. And a program can also reach out to you just to say they enjoyed interviewing with you and, to share more information with you. But a program cannot and should not be asking you where you are going to rank them. And I don't think this is something happens that common, but if it does, you are under no obligation to answer, and you should actually probably report that program to the NRMP, which you can do when you go to the NRMP website. So what I would say is if this does happen to you, and I don't think it will because it's not common, you should feel free to say, if they're like, we would like to know where you're ranking us. I mean, you could say that you're still considering all the programs, that you really enjoyed meeting them and are excited to think more about that. You should not be expected to answer that question. And if you are asked that question, talk to a trusted person around you, an advisor, a mentor, talk to the RMP, but just get them people's opinions. So tend to come up, and then I'm also happy to answer questions as they come up. So one thing that commonly comes up, and I'm going to ask my colleagues here to also weigh in if they disagree with any of this, is should I send a thank you note? And if I do send a thank you note, should I do it on paper or via email? What I will say is that ideally, most programs will tell you their policy on thank you notes. So, for example, we say, please don't send thank you notes because, frankly, I don't really want to get for all of the people who apply with us. If they don't, and you decide you want to send a thank you note, you can feel free to do so. But I think most programs don't expect it. And most of us don't really honestly do much with it. If you think about it, as Dobbin said, they're interviewing over 100 people. They're not really keeping track of who sent a thank you note and who hasn't. But if you choose to, there's nothing wrong with it. It's not going to hurt. But I would also say then do an email, because honestly, by the time we get paper envelopes, it's like probably after the match by that point. So probably not the best use of your time. So I think just in general, not something that people expect. If you want to do it, I just say I don't think it really moves the needle. It's not going to move your place on a rank list. And again, I don't think programs are. And then, all right, I just asked. I don't know if anyone has other thoughts about that specifically.
Your question was about your comment was about the letters afterwards. Yeah, I
thank you notes.
Yeah. So I wouldn't necessarily call it a thank you note, but if you have a question that you did not that came up after the interview, and the night after the interview, and you woke up in the morning, you said, "Oh, I forgot to ask about this." Yeah, go ahead, and if you have a question that didn't get answered and you want it to be answered, I would don't hesitate to reach back out to the program and ask a question. They don't. That's fine, as long as it's a honest, sincere question. They would love to hear from you, but it's not necessary or helpful to say thank you it's not the expectation, and it's not going to help you or the program.
Thank you, Tom. Amen. All right. Can folks still hear me? Okay, sorry. It's just my internet connection's a bit unstable. Another question that we tend to get is that I really liked this program. I enjoyed it, but I don't think my interview went well. Is there anything that I can do about that? And honestly, it's, it's challenging. If the interview went very poorly, it can be a little bit hard to completely shift the narrative. But again, it wouldn't hurt to reach out to a program and say, and say that just express that you really enjoyed meeting with everybody and that you enjoyed the program, and give some specifics about what you love about the program. It won't hurt. It may not, again, like reverse an interview that just for some reason went very poorly, but it's not going to hurt. And it's probably the main thing you can do. And then the other thing I would just say is that often people think their interviews went terribly, but they actually went completely fine. And so try to not fall into the trap of assuming that it was a terrible interview. Often it's actually fine and you did fine. But I think if you're just trying to reemphasize you like a program and you're a little worried, it doesn't hurt to reach out just to express that. But I would be specific about why. Don't just say, I loved your program, thank you for interviewing me. Maybe give a couple reasons what it is about the program that really draws you to it and what you enjoyed about the interview day. We also can ask you what if I had a poster or a paper accepted after I interviewed, what should I do? And again, it doesn't hurt to just shoot a message to the program coordinator and share, hey, I just had something published. Could you share with the program directors? I do think it's probably better to send that kind of information to the coordinator, to the people on the staff that you're interfacing with, just because the program directors are getting a lot of email. And that way that it can be sort of forwarded through the program coordinator. But yeah, if you have something new that's come up or an award or something that you just want to make sure the program is aware of, go ahead and share that with the coordinator, and they will make sure they get it to the right people in terms of the program director. Sorry about that. Another question that we can get is, what should I do in terms of telling people that they're my number one or number two or number three. Again, what I would say is that if you just think about the match from a practical standpoint, the match benefits applicants, right? It looks first at what you are ranking, and then it looks at the program's rank. It does not make sense for a program to change their rank list based on what you're telling them your preferences are. Programs should rank applicants as they want them, and applicants should rank programs as they want them. It just doesn't make sense to try to change your rank list based on what someone else is telling you. All that to say is that I don't think you telling a program that they're in your top is going to necessarily, again, move you from like spot number 20 on a rank list to spot number 1, but it doesn't hurt. Some programs like to hear it. And so I think if you want to tell a program that you're number 1, you should feel free to do that. But I don't think you should expect that to mean that you're going to match there. Because, again, from a practical standpoint, a program shouldn't really move you around on their list based on what you're telling them. What I will say, though, is that what's not helpful is telling a program anything other than you are my number 1 choice. Because if you reach out and say, I'm ranking you highly, what that means to us is that, okay, we're not your number 1 choice. Or if you say, I really loved your program, I would love to be there, all that means to us is that we're not your number 1 choice. So unless you're going to reach out to a program and say, you are my number 1 choice, don't reach out to programs, because we know, unless you're saying that, we know what you mean, which is that we're not your number 1, which is fine. But just then, like, what do we do with that information? It's kind of just like useless communication, frankly. The other thing I will say is that it's a small rule. Do not tell a program that you're number 1 if they're not your number 1. It is not well looked upon. And if you are going to do something after and you apply for fellowship, like, people kind of remember these things. And it's also just sort of not an ethical thing to do. So if you want to tell a program then they're your number 1 and they are your number 1, feel free to do it. Do it without any expectation of how it's going to impact your match. Do not tell a program they're your number 1 if they're not. And don't give vague statements about ranking highly, because we know what it means, and then we don't know what to do with that information. Okay, my last thing I was just going to mention that we get asked about a bit is, what do I do if a program is sort of making me a little bit uncomfortable, but they're not asking me where I'm ranking them? So they're not technically violating, but I just am not sure how to communicate because they're sort of asking questions in a way that make me uncomfortable. Again, I don't think this is going to happen commonly, but if it does, you don't respond right away. Talk to other people. Have someone else look at the message. Talk to, again, a mentor, someone in your school. If you don't have those folks readily available, talk to another friend or colleague, or anyone, honestly, a parent, whatnot. But get someone else's opinion. Talk it over with other people. You don't have to respond right away. And sort of gather some opinions before making that kind of response. I would say in general, if you're feeling uncomfortable, you're not sure how to respond, and you're not getting a lot of advice, I think a vague thank you is you have to commit or say things that aren't true or accurate based on how the program is communicating with you. Okay, so I think that was the last thing I was going to share. Let me stop sharing if it lets me. There we go.
Yeah.
And I am happy to answer any questions. I don't know if anything else came in the chat.
Yeah, there are a few things, but I think people have been answering. But still, I'll take it through. One of the big questions that was asked, which is based on your talk, Dr. Dobin-Chow, about what do you say about, tell me a little bit about yourself. And you said that particular link was available. And Mary Ellen, are we going to have the slide set available to people? If not, can we just post that link in the slides? In the text message?
I was going to say this is being recorded and it'll be on our YouTube site. So this,
yeah, but if we can get that link specifically from Dr. Chow's thing and be able to copy paste it, that would be great, because that'll help them then look at that specific thing on. Because I looked at it, Dr. Chow, and it was really amazing. And what is the best way? Like, what do you answer? Then there were questions about, like, the weaknesses and strengths. And people, y'all can unmute yourself if you want to specifically ask your questions. This is a good time to do it.
Feel free to raise your hand also. That way you can be called upon.
I know that Fatima had questions about letter of intent. If she's still on the call.
Yes, hello. I'm Dr. Fatima. So my question was about the letter of intent. So a lot of programs I have seen on their website that they don't want any email or communication before getting any interviews. So, but I have heard that to send them letter of intents to the program. So I was just curious if it's the right thing to do or not.
I think it gets back to what I was saying about, telling a program that they're your top choice. Again, I don't think it necessarily moves the needle, but if you want to tell a program that you're your top choice, feel free to do so. However, I don't think this needs to be a letter. I think you can just tell a program that via email. But what I would say is that if you're not sure, on your interview day, ask programs, like, how do you feel about us communicating with you after regarding our intention or interest in your program? And if they say, please do not communicate with us, it's not a trick. They're not trying to see if you really are interested. Like, if they tell you don't message us, then don't message them, because then if you message them anyway, it just means you're not following directions. But if they don't mind and you want to express your interest in a program, feel free to do so. But I think, as it's in the chat, it's not expected, and it's not something that you sort of get dinged on if you don't do it. But I do think it's a fair question to ask during the interview day, which is, how do you all approach post-interview communication? Would you be okay if I sent an email of my interest? And if they say, please don't do that, then don't do it. But if they're like, sure, why not? Then feel free to go ahead. I don't know what folks have thoughts.
Okay, sorry, Natasha. Perhaps I misunderstood, but I think Hira was asking even before the interview. Is that correct, Hira?
Yes.
Okay. So before even the interview is, and while people are reviewing applications, it is not helpful. I will tell you that we often get 30, 40, 50 emails a day, and most programs have no capacity to read them or review them. And it just jumps up the folders. So I'm sorry, but that is typically not helpful. Dabin, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's helpful. The other thing that's not that helpful is people over prepare for the interview. I see them. They look you up on PubMed, and then they try to read stuff that you've written. PubMed. If they discuss your publications with you, which I'm not sure that's that productive. First of all, I have nothing that's interesting among my publications, anyways. But I'm not sure that's a good approach. I think it doesn't necessarily show that. I don't know. But have you encountered that, Sapna? Yeah. I wouldn't go crazy looking up people's bibliography. But it may be helpful to know, if you interview with Dr. Deepak, that she's a pulmonary critical care specialist, but you don't have to go through her entire morass of publications and bibliography. That'll take you centuries.
Thank you, Dobbin. But having said that, it's always nice, like a lot of places have a faculty profile or something written on the person. So it's also good to know what their interests are in that sense. You don't need to look at any publications and PubMed. I agree with you on that. But, you'll at least know who you're talking to and what are their areas of interest and expertise, right? Because you don't want to step into the miasm of talking. Like, for example, if you're talking to Dr. Shida, you don't want to tell her on how, you diagnose some brilliant zebra ID case and then, which is fine, except if you've really diagnosed it, because those kind of issues are going to be a problem, right? So, yes. So in that sense, it's helpful. And yep, I think there was also questions about the strength and weaknesses. I think there are a few questions were asked on how do you portray the strengths and weaknesses. So if people want to speak up about it on strengths and weaknesses, I forgot the person who had asked the question about negative things and making it positive. I think Vishnu, you had asked that specific question. We're still on the call. Feel free to ask other questions. I mean, we are all happy to be here for you, but at the same time, would love participation, right? Because that's what they are also looking for, even when you interview.
I just want to make one comment quickly about the letter of intent, and just a reminder that now, because we have program signaling, really that's how you should be showing your interest. And so if you don't signal a program and then you send a letter of intent, that also doesn't really make any sense. So just use your signals to show interest in a program prior to the interview.
Yeah. So the letter of the signals are limited. You have like 15 or something like that. So
yeah.
So you cannot send all programs the signals. So that's why the letter of intent comes. So
right, but I think from me as a program, if I didn't get a signal from you, that means I'm not in your top 15. So if you send me a letter of intent, I know that I'm not in your top 15. So it's not useful for programs.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. So can I ask one question, please? Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so as an international physician, of course, my English is not bad, but of course, during the interview with all the stress, I may make some grammatical mistakes. So my question is it, or does it really matter for you if I do some grammatical mistakes, or is it just fine? Thank you.
Oh, perfectly. Thank you for that question. Look, we all have folks who come from different backgrounds, different cultures. Don't worry about that. That's you be genuine. Come across how you are. You are understood very well, and if you just feel confident that it's not about your grammar. It's not about your accent. It's more about what's in your meaning that you're trying to communicate. The essence of what you're communicating. That's more important.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you.
There's a lot of other people with hands up, I see.
Hands up. Sorry, I didn't see them. I apologize. I'm trying to see who. Okay. So, Zainab.
Good evening, everyone. Well, I had a question I think someone had previously maybe asked. I heard a little bit of it. I was having trouble joining the meeting. So I have actually two questions. First, I was wondering that, I have heard over the years that, it does matter if you are given an interview and you have a choice as to when to select for your interview. Do you do it earlier and then think that they'll forget about you? Or do you just do it and be grateful you got an interview? Like, I'm just, I guess in a way, like, do you just go ahead and do it, or do you save your program for later? I don't know if I asked that correctly. The second question I have is for the letters. So if you have submitted your application and your application was, let's say, all complete, and you happen to get another letter which you think holds a higher value, but the ECFMG is still trying to process that letter, so you haven't signed that letter to the programs yet. Would they consider it incomplete and review it, and just like, because there's no way of them knowing that you are waiting or something is in process, do you just, I guess, what would be the best way to go about that? Do you let them know, especially if it's coming from that specific program, that you think could make a difference, or do you just, wait and assign when it does come? Thank you.
Natasha, Sapna, Job, and
Well, I'm trying to remember. The first question was about
the first
when to time your interview.
Yeah.
And, I don't think it matters as much as you think when you time the interview. It may be a slight advantage towards the middle, but I really think at the whole season, most programs are reviewing applications and talking about applicants on an ongoing basis, and already creating their own, at least our program did, start creating buckets of where the applicants would lie, and then review them all right before the rank list. So I think that trying to time the interview is very hard to do. And I would not focus that much on that per se. That's my perspective.
I agree, but I think the only thing is, if you know there's a program you're going to be very, very interested in, maybe don't have that as your first interview, just so that you get some of the nerves out of the way and you get a little bit of practice. But as has been said, like, typically we re-review all the applicants when our making our rank lists anyway, and so consistent way across the season. So the time of your interview shouldn't really make a difference in terms of your standing.
Okay, next question.
Hi, can I have one question, please?
Go ahead.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Raj Dungol. Actually, I have a little bit different background. Actually, I have a long years of graduation. I did my post graduation residency in general surgery back home, and I am here now. After I had worked as a general surgeon for 3 years back home in Nepal. So I'm here now looking for a residency again in internal medicine. So I want to ask that how you look into my application, like
how you do what to your application?
Yeah, how would you take my application like, and then what is my chance of getting into the internal medicine residency here in the United States?
Oh, okay. So the question relates to, I guess, year of graduation and activity post-graduation before residency, right?
Right.
Yeah, and so I don't know how other programs respond to that. My view of it is that if you've been clinically active and you've been in the clinical arena, you've been using your medical knowledge, you've been honing your clinical skills, that's great. On the other hand, if it's been several years since you graduated medical school, some of the knowledge that you learned may have faded away. Some of your skills may have eroded. So that's not so good. So it's not necessarily the number of years, but what you've done during those intervening years makes it difficult.
Okay.
I think we have several people in the queue
Yes,
who
yes,
have been patiently waiting. Shrishti?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I had a question that I previously asked another associate program director, and I keep getting varying opinions on this. Is it okay to have something in your background when you have your camera on during the interview, or is it more advisable for it to be just a blank space? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We can. I think it's an interesting question, and you might get, and there's a reason you get different answers because it depends on the individual. We are all different, just like you guys are in our preferences to some degree too. But what I would say is sometimes it's helpful to get to know your personality, your back, and if there is something of interest, perhaps it might be a topic of conversation. But in general, you don't want a background that's too distracting or with inappropriate posters or something like that. So you want to keep it neutral, professional in appearance. That would be my preference.
I think the next person is Anuj. Sorry.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My question is, this is my second cycle. Last cycle, when I applied, I had got few number of interviews. Is it advisable to apply this program that I had interviewed before, and will the program think that I've already interviewed him in the previous cycle and judge it, or will they be giving a second chance as well?
So it's fine to interview a second time. I think it'd be interesting to know what you did during that intervening year. What did you do to enhance your skills, your knowledge, your experiences during that time, and emphasize that, and emphasize that you're now a better candidate than you were the first go round.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zhao.
Yeah, it's not a negative to apply again.
Thank you so much. Amna Ali is next.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone, first of all. So my question is that, for example, as Dr. K, she initially said that every program gets a lot of applications, and then it's a computerized sort of a way where you people filter those applications in. So, for example, if a program has a criteria for step 1 score of a 240, and obviously the applicant does not meet in that criteria, but the applicant has done a lot of US clinical experience to to improve their application and everything, even will they be able to get a chance to interview? Or is it just for international medical graduates? It's because as an IMG, a lot of emphasis is put on the scores, but if someone is not meeting the score criteria, but they've improved their application in other aspects, will they be given a chance?
I mean, it's difficult to say because I can only speak for one program, and every program does their process differently.
Yep.
So it depends on how they set up their screens to see and review applications. I think for many programs, the challenge is if I had 100 applicants for 18 positions, I would be able to read all those 100 applications. If I have 1,000 applications, or if I have 5,000 applications, which is what we had last year, close to 6,000. So then it becomes harder and harder for programs to holistically review all the applications. So they often may use some screens, but it really depends on the program, I would say. Any thoughts, Tabin or Natasha?
I agree with you. If all the components of an application are at a very high level, there's a good number of people who've done well in their tests, their medical school, their experiences, their letters, and then the challenge for programs is to look at those, look among that pool.
We have one last question, and can Noor Abu talk about her question, and that's the last question.
Hi, I hope you're having a good evening. My question is, I am an IMG, but I'm currently living in the States. I'm doing research. I'm working as a research coordinator with MedStar Washington Hospital Center. And my question is, when I picked programs, I was interested in programs that look like a good residency program. And a bonus was its research options available around it or in the program itself. However, I was wondering, are mentors for research easily available if I end up matching in a program that doesn't have the best research opportunities, but mentors who are willing to work in research and help me in my research career?
That's going to be program specific. Some programs, hopefully, some programs will have some research-oriented faculty. They may not necessarily have research faculty in your area of interest. A large university medical center like Dr. Natasha has, that's going to be very comprehensive, and they'll have a portfolio of research opportunities. But smaller hospitals, smaller programs probably will not.
If research is your primary goal, then a research fellowship might be something you might be more interested in pursuing to satisfy and get credentials for research. But to expect that you might be able to do a great job and do a lot of research during a clinical training program might not be the best approach or to expect.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, I think at this time it's 7:59. Thank you all for attending. I know a few people try to log in about 5 minutes before we are ready to close. I'm sorry I couldn't let them in at this point. But thanks for being there. The session is recorded. You'll get the recording session. I would like to really thank Dr. Keel, Dr. Dobin Chow, and Dr. Natasha Chida for answering questions for our two Dr. Colleen Christmases who have been answering questions, Natasha and Colleen, and to Mary Ellen to put this all together. Thank you so much, everyone.